Look, I got to tell you, there's almost no good reason ever to get a loan so you can go on vacation. I was in the elevator and there was a sign for getting a loan for a vacation up to $5,000. Um, if you're in a situation where you think you need a loan to go on vacation, like that's a big red flag. And uh, I'm not a professional on wealth management, but I can tell you at one point I was over $100,000 in unsecured debt, and I had an attitude of, get what I want now and pay for it later, and that kept accumulating into the point in which I was over $100,000 in debt. It took some serious changes in my life to get a hold of it, and I took a Dave Ramsey course, which was like a 6 week or a 9 week program. Completely reoriented my life around what it is to take care of your money, your finances, or prioritizing and all that kind of stuff. And so while I'm not a pro on wealth management, I have a lot of experience spending money foolishly, and that is a foolish way to spend money. And I'm going to tell you real quick why. And this is really just my heart breaks for this because I don't want you to get in debt over something as silly as a summer trip to Disney World or something. And here's why. So first off, getting a loan for a vacation means you're going to spend more than you would have spent if you were being frugal about it, because that's what we do. When we have loans, we have quote unquote free money in our minds, and we'll spend it. We'll spend all of it. And so where you might have been able to go on vacation for as little as $500 to $1,000 for something that's interesting and fun and away from the house, you'll wind up spending all $5,000 and you'll be paying for it for a while. So that's one reason. You're going to just spend more. The second reason is there are very few things that will actually justify the $5,000 or $4,000 or $3,000 or $2,000 that you'll spend, because if you've got kids with you and other things, it's really not going to be as fun as you hope for. It's going to be hotter than you thought it would be. The kids are going to be louder and less happy than they thought and all that kind of stuff. And you're going to be thinking to yourself, man, I just spent all this money and nobody cares, nobody appreciates it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't mean that to be negative. What I really mean is there's only a few kinds of things that people really value and enjoy. And when you have little ones, a lot of times they just don't value it the way you actually have to pay for it. And so I want you to be real cautious of that, because the kids care more about our time with them than the actual entertainment. And a lot of times as adults, we don't get the entertainment out of it that we expected, which then makes it still not worth the money. So the last thing that's really on my mind is when we go into debt for things like vacations, it's a downward spiral. We continue to say debt's a good answer for the next thing I want to do for enjoyment and some happiness. And then whenever we don't get it, we get further and further behind. And before we know it, we've got a whole lot of debt for a lot of things that we can't show for. And when you finance experiences through debt, that means you can't afford those experiences. Those experiences are not nearly as valuable as when you finance experiences out of your pocket and you're saying, I have the money to pay for this, and therefore I want to bring the kids to Disney World. That's a much funner experience because you're doing it as a act of abundance and generosity and all that kind of good stuff. It's not about taking money that you haven't made yet. It's about saying, hey, this is what I've got and I'm happy to spend it and apply it this way. But when you do it in the opposite direction, where you're actually just spending money you haven't earned yet, it'll get you upside down real quick. And it's just a bad habit to create. It's like muscles. You develop muscle memory around spending money you haven't gotten. And the more you do to spend muscle around things that you don't own as unsecured debts, the easier it is to spend into basically nothingness, right? You wind up having financed a lot of things that you have nothing to show for. And that can get you in a real jam in your family. It can wreck a marriage. It can also put you in a really bad situation and difficult person to be around because you're just stressed out all the time because you got all this debt and you can't figure out how to pay bills. And I know a lot of young people who have really messed up their lives in that kind of a cycle. So I saw it. I couldn't help. I just had to make this video and share it with you guys. I hope something here resonates with you. Don't finance your vacations, please. Thanks.